The mobile spend in general goes to Google and Facebook to an amount of 75%. They represent on mobile 25% of the time spent of consumers. And so what we're seeing is that advertisers are over-investing on these two actors. The potential consequence to that is that by overspending, they will overbid on themselves and make the price go higher. Focusing on these two actors is maybe not the only thing that they should do. Another reason for that is the fact that these two actors have something in common, is that they work with their own stack of technology. That means that for an advertiser that is looking forward to the ability to say, okay, I want to be able to measure what I'm doing. I want to be able to get some insights of what I'm doing. I need to measure my return on investment. When they do this with these two actors, they use Facebook and Google technology to do it. It's maybe not the best way of doing things, not maybe the most transparent way of doing things. So at the end of the day, it's interesting to acknowledge what the consumer is really doing and maybe follow its behavior, and like trying to find what kind of like content is browsing, maybe try to adjust the time spent of the consumer to the way you put your money onto it to make a very even and balanced decision of investment. Another thing that we're seeing towards 2017 is formats in general, and of course we can talk video, we can talk VR, 360, also rich media HTML5 type of campaigns. What is interesting there is the fact that for quite some time mobile was the afterthought of the advertising agency. Like they were doing the TV spot, they were doing their print, and then when it comes to having a mobile format, they were taking like the TV spot and forcing it into a tiny screen. So the way we see this and the way we approach this is like using vertical video. So it's interesting because now we have the ability to simplify the process. We get the TV spot, and we can shrink it to 10 seconds. We can like make it vertical and say, okay, this is the vertical version of it, and we can adapt it to tablet, mobile, even desktop. What I'm getting at right now is the fact that like when we're going to talk about format, mobile first thinking is becoming more and more important. There is also a second side of the story on mobile first, is like how the mobile first data can be made relevant for brands. And I think, so there's a lot of things. Data is big, there's like a lot of data on the consumer. What really makes a difference on mobile is the ability to have like your geolocation when you're using your phone and you gave the permission to be geolocalized. Now this through the location qualification, knowing that this place is actually an airport, it's actually an hotel, this is a business, a restaurant, is this a 5-star hotel? Is this like am I in a business lounge? And then like you get to know a lot more about the consumer. And even better than that, you learn about his offline behavior. And it really matters because consumers are offline. Their life is offline. Yes, we are connected from time to time, more and more, but I go to the shop, I walk, I drive, and these are the things that really matter at the end of the day. It's like, what is the true human condition of a consumer, and like being able to understand it, analyze it, and take decisions in terms of advertising and targeting toward that. Not only like doing geolocalized campaign, because that would be like the most obvious approach to it, and that still works, but like saying you have a store, you want to have people that come to your store, well, why not target people that are around your store or that visit your store often based on this information? So that would be one way of doing it. Another way of doing this mobile first data is less about where they are right now, but like what you learn by seeing them going from places to places. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that because local advertisers, retailers are doing most of their business offline. It's like 70% of their billings are now offline still. I think one of the potential third point I'd like to mention, and where we're also really like pushing the envelope and trying to get more and more active, is cross-device. Understanding that you could use, as I mentioned before, mobile-first creativity and mobile-first data to actually handle this whole digital devices sphere. And I can give you an example of a campaign we ran for Leroy Merlin. They called us and said, okay guys, we have our summer catalog of products coming up this summer. We would like to promote it on people that went to our stores and to people that went to our competitor stores. We want to target people on tablets and on desktop because it's too big to be seen on a mobile phone. We don't have the proper content, mobile first content. We said, wait a second, we can look at the mobile impressions that were generated into the stores, right? This is something we do every day. So we can look at the device IDs or the identifiers of these devices. Now, if I put this device ID into the device graph, the device graph will give me, okay, this mobile phone that has been seen in the store also is linked to this tablet and desktop. And then we can do it because we know who are these people. We can actually map them over their different devices and target them on tablet and desktop. Another very important usage of cross-device is attribution. And what I mean by that, and we're working on that with a lot of our clients, is that we expose people on their mobile phones because this is where they spend most of their time, but they tend to sometimes convert on desktop. And so far, our clients thought that these conversions, these acts of transformation by the consumer were just organic, natural. But we actually worked for it. We exposed them on mobile. So how could we show the client the value of what we're doing? We needed to be able to say, hey, this conversion on desktop actually was linked to the same person that we exposed on mobile. And using the same device graph, it's possible to do so. So we can really not even activate, but like analyze how cross-device contribute to the brand value and communications. I don't think every brand will be mobile only, and I think it's not like a must-have, but there's a big opportunity for it. It requires having a good business model for it, a good approach, a strategic approach on mobile. If you're a bank, if you're having services, if you're an insurance company, there's a lot of room for mobile only. Before, brands were, it was about like interruption marketing. You want to see a content? Sure, it's going to be free, but see this advertising first. And brands still think a bit this way. But with mobile, it's like, how can I contribute to the everyday life of the consumer, especially through apps? So what is the service? What is the interest they'll find? Could be entertainment, but could be also like a lot of other things, like making their life easier, making their task easier to process, having information that they could not access before. Like all these things could be extremely interesting. And when you go into that, when you're able to reshape your approach of your business, this is the opportunity for brands to really like stand out, be different, and build, I think, a connection to the consumer that will be like occurring every day. We tend to present their approach a little bit different than they are actually doing it. When you go with Facebook and Google, when you're an advertiser, you're not really conscious you're doing mobile. You're saying like, oh, I'm doing Facebook. And yeah, Facebook is a bit mobile behind, but I'm doing video on Facebook. Yeah, you're not doing mobile video in your brain when you're an advertiser doing this. We believe that like making the advertiser aware of what the consumer is going to see is the best way to get them to do the best thing, because they're like the consumer should be the focus, not Facebook, not Google, not whatever type of publisher. I think where we're going to be slightly different in the way we're using Facebook and Google is like we're going to use them for what they can be good at, but not like as like, oh, we have to do it because it's Facebook. No, we can promote apps very efficiently using Facebook, for example, but some video campaigns maybe are better fitted somewhere else. We have a broader opportunity, and also we have like other ecosystem than Google and Facebook that provide us with open data. So we wanted to use them because they're important, we also want to ponder the way we're going to use it based on what they're good at and where like we see other opportunities than just using this and making the client more aware of what the consumer is going to see behind this. Now, it's very difficult to pronounce yourself about like who's going to be it and how it's going to work. It requires market adoption. People need to adopt it. The valuable content so far that we have on VR is very limited. So it will take from the publishers, from the content providers to develop interesting content for consumers. I'm going to propose a VR experience of my brand on this. Now, you don't know if the person is using this phone in a VR position. The only way of making sure of that would be to integrate the experience within a VR content. And then you'll have a proper VR campaign. This is very, very, very few people at this stage. So when it comes to Internet of Things, well, there's a lot of devices. Addressing this audience, well, it's literally impossible because it's too divided. There's too much of them. The specific, I'll say probably like 80 to 90% of these connected devices, connected homes even, or connected cars have one thing in common, is that they are linked or synced with an app. The app means data. So for brands, like for example, imagine like one of the first connected device that comes to mind is for me, the Nike Plus. I think there's like one change, structural change in the industry that is gonna define and change how like advertisers are using mobile. Depending on the maturity of the market, we're seeing that publishers are switching the inventory from direct buy to SSPs to have like programmatic inventory booking, right? So this opens them with the ability to work with a lot more data targeting behind. And there's not really big data for big data, it's big data for better connection of the consumer with the brand and making them really close one another. And that is really empowered by the shift of direct buy to programmatic inventory buying. We're looking at a market that is in transition. It used to be like not the first place where the consumer was, and then we're seeing the impression counts and like the usage and time spent exploding all over the place and globally. Like it's the #1 digital device used by consumers today. Now it's interesting because if the consumer are doing it, we're seeing that advertisers are not really spending as much than the consumer are spending time on it. So you're like, wait a second, what's going on this market? Are they disconnected? Yes, there's a bit of a disconnection right now, but this is where it gets interesting, and it's normal. It's safe, and like it shouldn't be like something to worry about. The reason why there is a disconnection is like any new market, the supply needs to go up first, then people will follow. Now, how can we make that happen? How can we make the advertiser understand that it will be interesting for them to go there and evolve into like more mobile type of approaches and spend maybe a little bit closer to what the consumer are doing on mobile. I think it comes from education a lot, and this is a lot of things I do is like, why is it important? How can you do it well? And come back to the consumer experience, designing user experiences that are valuable, understanding how targeting could be relevant, all the things we talked before. If they make sense to the advertiser, this is where they're gonna be, okay, I feel safe. It's not like so difficult for me to get there.